over to you.
Thank you, Catherine. Muting and unmuting there, but hopefully you'll hear me now. And I apologize in advance for the train noises that you may hear out of my window through the evening. I will try and keep it muted when I can. But I'm delighted to be joined by so many of you tonight to talk about all things Fontodi, a wonderful Chianti Classico producer that we have been privileged to work with for a number of years now, starting back in the 70s. And of course, at the helm, Giovanni Manetti is the renowned character within Chianti Classico for incredible knowledge on all things about the region, and specifically, of course, about his own wines at Fontodi, a font of knowledge. And I really hope that you'll put your questions to him and to us, because every time I have an evening with Giovanni, I usually learn a huge number of new things. And I have my pen and paper ready to write down the things that I'm going to learn tonight. And I hope that you will really enjoy all of the things that Giovanni is going to share with us. We're especially going to be looking at the 2017s, which I can remind you are currently live online at the Wine Society. So do feel free to put a few bottles in your basket tonight. They mostly, when I put Fontodi wines live online, they don't stick around for long at the Wine Society. So I have a habit of hiding them and only releasing them when I really think it's a wonderful time to drink. And I think in the run up to Christmas, there's nothing better than a glass of wonderful Fontodi 2017 Chianti Classico, which I also have in my glass at the moment. So I hope that some of you join us with a glass of wine already, or are thinking about picking up a few bottles for celebrating over the season. And I will hand over quickly to Giovanni to really go through things, and we will catch up as we go. Giovanni, thank you so much for joining us this evening from your beautiful parlor.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me here. It's a great honor. I'm so excited, and I say hello to all the Wine Society members that are joining us tonight, and I'm so happy and ready for you.
Thank you. Now I think, Catherine, yes, we have a presentation with a few images which are just so beautiful. So I will leave it with you, Giovanni, to guide us through.
Yeah, this is a map of Chianti Classico region, and that is the region in between Florence on the north and Siena on the south. And this is just a part of Chianti Classico region. But in the bottom, in the center, you can see the blue area. That is Panzano. That is one of the main villages of the Chianti Classico region, and where Fontodi is located. And more precisely, in the valley that opens up south of the village, that is called since centuries the Conca d'Oro, the golden shell. It is like an amphitheater, a natural amphitheater, so with a concave shape and with a full southern exposure. So there is a lot of light there and quite warm during the day. But because of the high elevation, 450 meters, and the average, and you know, the elevation and the unique microclimate that is in the valley, the nights are cool, so there is a huge difference in temperature between day and night, and that is very you know, helpful to maintain the acidity and to maintain the freshness and the delicacy of the wine. On the right side, you can see on different colors all the vineyards, the parcels that I have at the property. And all the wines from Fontodi are made with our own grapes. So all the grapes that I use to make Fontodi wines are taken from those parcels. And every vineyard has a name, like Vigna del Sorbo, or Il Poggio, or Pescille, or La Rota, and everyone has a different combination between you know, elevation, exposure, and one of the main changes that I introduced when I started my activity in Fontodi back in 1979 was to vinify parcel by parcel, just to see, you know, the potential of every single piece of land, and immediately few years, the start of this new approach, I decided to bottle by itself. So as a single vineyard, the Flaccianello, and few years after, the Vineyard del Sorbo. All the rest of the vineyards are dedicated to the Fontodi Chianti Classico. So all the wines that I make from Panzano area, they are made from vineyards located in this beautiful amphitheater called the Conca d'Oro. Yeah.
Great. And do we have a photograph of the Conca d'Oro? I'm sure we do, perhaps.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
So you can see Panzano, the village. It's a medieval village on the top of the hill, and then the valley that opens up south of the village. And there are also some olive groves. It is typical of Chianti Classico to have together in the same area some olive groves and vineyards, and that helps also the biodiversity, because it's the Chianti Classico region is absolutely not monocultural. So vineyards is only 10% of the total surface in Chianti Classico, and that is very helpful for the biodiversity. And so the more vegetation, the more species of plants and animals that you have in an environment, this is much easier to be organic, much easier to resist against insects, against fungus, against enemies that are coming from outside. So the environment is like a box. If the box is full of organism, there is no space for the enemies, and there is no space for enemies that they want to get in the system and colonize it. So in an environment like that, with more than one cultivation, is much easier to be organic, and you can see a self-defense of every vine, and it is very good to make a better wine, a better quality wine. Mm-hmm. And in Fontodi, there are 92 hectares under vines, and the average production is around 350,000 bottles every year. But depends on the vintage. Every vintage has its own story. And for instance, the 2017 that we are tasting tonight was very good in quality, but poor in quantity. Everybody in the area produced between 25 and 30% less than usual, and that's nature. So we have to accept what Mother Nature is giving us,
How was the 2020 harvest, Giovanni?
The 2020 was amazing. Was really, really great and excellent harvest. So 2020 will be reminded not only for the bad things, but also for the excellent quality of the wine that we produced. And even the olive oil was amazing, huge production and incredible quality. So it's we are very happy on that side. I think that the quality benefit also the extra time that all of us, all the vintners dedicated to their own vineyards, because there were no wine fairs, no wine trips, and so we spent much more time in the vineyard, and the effects is, a better quality. So Mother Nature was generous, but we worked even harder than usual because we wanted to, from day one, all the vintners and lots of friends, they told me the same. We wanted to, we wanted to make the best wine of our career, just as a positive reaction on the, against COVID, against the pandemic. So, and it's early to say because the wines are still in the malolactic fermentation, but the first taste is amazing. There's a lot of, the parfum is incredible. When you get in the cellar, you have a lot of flavors coming to you and a lot of vinosity, So wine flavors. fresh wine flavors, and they have well
so
structured page.
I'm so hopeful, Giovanni, that I'll be able to come out in the spring and taste these wines with you again as normal. But
it's always a great pleasure. Always a great pleasure when you and Sebastian, before you, they are coming to my place, and I have the opportunity to show you the new vintage. It's always a great pleasure. Since 1979, that is when I started and to work with Wine Society, and Wine Society was my first personal customer. At that time, I was a teenager. I was 16 years old, and my father told me, Giovanni, tomorrow the very important person is coming, and there's a great opportunity to start to do business with them. It's Wine Society, so so something amazing, but I can't. So you have to stay there and to meet those very important people and do your best. Don't delude me, and that is what I did. So,
well, I do hope that Sebastian wasn't a huge disappointment when he arrived. I'm sure he tasted every barrel and every bottle that you offered. He's such a diligent taster.
So I have a very, a lot of art with Wine Society, and it's a special relationship.
And it is for us. I think consistently we're always so proud to be working with your wines. So it's very mutually felt.
Thank you very much. And
we had a lovely photograph of the vineyard, a second vineyard after the Concadora. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about the second photo.
Yeah, this photo.
Yes.
Yes, and
it's such a beautiful, luscious shot.
Thank you very much. And we can see here two of the main sources of for Flaccianello. That is the vineyard just below the village. The name is Pescille. Is really one of the most beautiful vineyard that I have at the property. And the one on the left, Il Poggio. And those are two of the three main sources of the grapes for Flaccianello. And because the parcels that they give birth to Flaccianello, they are located on the top of the hill. So where the soil is very rocky, poorer than usual. So there is more light because on the top of the hill, the days are longer. And you have a natural reduction of the size. So the size of the bunches, of the clusters, the size of the berries is smaller than usual. So you have an extra concentration, vinifying separately those grapes, you can make something special and very different. And that is how I make Flaccianello. But tonight we are talking about the Chianti Classico wines. So not of Flaccianello, but Flaccianello is like the flagship of Fontodi. So it's impossible. Don't speak about Flaccianello.
No, and I'm sure we will have questions on it later. I'm ready for them. But no, beautiful shot, and interesting to hear that it's the poorer soils again at the top of the hill that create these very flavorsome grapes.
Yeah, it's a hilly place. Yeah. So, and the soil composition of this area is something very special because it's a combination. They are like layers. It's a combination of clay schist and limestone together at the same time. And the schist is a very friable rock, and but in origin it was a clay. So the percentage of clay in that soil is quite high, and that helps to retain humidity, to retain water, helping the vines to face even a drier summer. And and the wines that are coming from the clay schist soil are muscular, are rich, and that is a part of the of the personality of Fontodi wines. The limestone on the other side is very rich of calcaire. The calcaire gives acidity and freshness. So that's why the combination of the two makes the wines, richer and than the rest, and with a very firm structure. So a good tannic structure, but with a lot of freshness. In the finish, the acidity is refreshing your palate, and it is one of the main character of Fontodi wines. And at the top, on the top of the hill, the soil is even rocky, more rocky, say, and poorer. So there are more stones, more rocks. Even when you walk in the vineyard, and you can see there are more rocks. So the roots of the vines that are going deeper and deeper, they have to explore more soil, to find something to eat, and so there are more minerals that are, that have been absorbed by the roots, and the wines are, they have a longer taste, and more complexity, and a firmer structure.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. We have a few members who are putting in the comments that they're drinking these with food. And of course, everything you've just said about having good structure and slightly fresher bones, that lovely tannin structure, but also the freshness of the acidity means that these wines they really come into their own when paired with food. So I'm sure everybody's having a good evening who've managed to, somebody's got some toad in the hole that they've managed to put on, which is a sausage in Yorkshire pudding batter, Giovanni, for the non-Brit among us. But I imagine it's going very well.
Yeah,
but
and
also had a wonderful photo, speaking of food, but not instantly related, of the cows. So you were talking about biodiversity earlier.
Yeah, and my beloved cows. I have more than 60 Chianina cows. The Chianina is the traditional, I would say, breeding of Tuscany, and I'm sure that the most of the members have been many times in Tuscany, visiting Florence or the Chianti region, and the main dish in Tuscany is the bistecca alla fiorentina, so the T-bone steak, and the real one, the traditional one, the best one should come from one of those animals, from Chianina cows. And when I was a child, there were thousands of cows in the Chianti area. And then in the 70s, they disappeared very quickly, very, very fast, because the big tractors came, and how do you say, the beginning of the 70s, the goal was, producing quantity, reducing the cost. So a lot of, how do you say, errors, and a lot of mistakes have been made at that time. And but they remained in my mind. So back in 1990, I converted all the farm to organic methods. And 10 years after, I decided to start to apply the biodynamic principles. In the biodynamic, the presence of the animals is they play a very important role, because the animals, they give fertility back to the soil, back to the vineyard. So I cultivate hay and barley in my property to feed the animals, and they give us back not only the bistecca, the steaks and beautiful meat for the local restaurants, but also a lot of manure, mountains of manure, that I combine with residual pruning the vines, with fermented skins, with stems, and I put all together, and I make a compost. And the compost is the fertilizer that I use for all the vineyards. So doing that, I'm able to, how to say, to underline, to exalt the flavors, the real characters of this specific piece of land. And because if we are able to close to external inputs and to maximize the internal resources, I think is much better for the quality, you know, because quality, in my opinion, is more and more sense of place. So a great wine, in my opinion, should represent at its best the territory that gave birth to that wine. So, and representing something unique, something that cannot be replicated in another part of the world. And doing, you know, cultivating the vineyards growing the vineyards with organic methods or biodynamic is helping this kind of process. So if you want to improve the quality, respect Mother Nature. That's my very simple concept. And that is what I like to do. Right or wrong, I don't know, but that is what I like to do.
I'm sure, Giovanni, that you are right, but your wine's a testament to it. But it's also, it feels so much more integrated and so much long-term to farm in the way in which you're doing. I'm sure it perhaps has some connection to the fact that you are a family-owned estate. Your is long-term.
Yes, you know, my father Dino acquired the property in 1968, but we are from that area. We are from the Chianti region, and you know, the traditional activity of the family is terracotta, and since the 17th century we have a factory in the Chianti, in the north of the Chianti Classico region, close to the northern border of Chianti Classico, in Grape, and we produce, you know, terracotta floor tiles, roof tiles, and also amphoras.
We have some great example of them in front of us on this photo. Your tiles, particularly, are very distinctive.
Yeah, and my grandfather used to make amphoras for wine since you know, a long time, and then in 1930 the production stopped because probably there was no more demand at the time for those amphoras. And but in 10-12 years ago I decided to start again the production of the amphoras and starting also to experiment you know, the vinification, so the winemaking in amphora. That is what I do. And I use the amphoras for the white wine that I make, Meriggio. A part of the white grapes are fermented and matured in amphoras. The variety that I use are Sauvignon mainly, and a little bit of Trebbiano, that is a local variety. And then I use for Sangiovese, of course, because you know, the biggest majority of the grape of the vineyards that I have are planted with Sangiovese. So a little part of Flaccianello, something like 3-4%, are vinified in amphora, and also aged in amphora for 2 years. And I blend with the same wine, but aged in oak, aged in French oak, small barrels, for just before the bottling. And that helps because it's like giving you know, a sort of you know, like a brush of freshness, you know, and because the one in amphora, they don't have spiciness, so it's just you know, fruitiness, flowers, and minerality, a lot of minerality. So in a blend is something that is you know, giving you know, another dimension, you know, an extra dimension, and making the wine more complex. And that is what I like to do. And and also the last project is Dino. Dino was my father, so in his honor I make a very small quantity of like 1,000 bottles of a wine called Dino, and that is fermented and aged 100% in amphora with no oak. And it's something that I don't put in my price list, because I'm quite jealous and protective of that wine. You can imagine why. But that is the wine that I like to open, you know, in the family events.
On special occasions.
Special occasions, yes.
Absolutely. And of course, we can also see that you've got some barrels in the background here. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your winemaking sort of stance and your philosophy behind the red wines?
Yeah. So that is a part of my cellar that is composed by 3 different levels. So I like to work by gravity as much as possible without pumping, without disturbing the wine or the must. So the grapes are, of course, picked by hand and chosen, selected on selection tables, double selection of the clusters and selection of the berries, and only perfectly healthy and ripe berries, they proceed the trip to the tanks where the fermentation and maceration take place. I don't use any commercial yeast or enzyma or nothing. The same approach that I have in the vineyard, I try to have in the cellar. So minimal approach and minimal intervention. And so very low sulfites and natural fermentation, spontaneous fermentation. That is another factor that can increase the sense of place and the complexity. But I like quite long maceration. So 20 to 30 days of maceration or extraction from the skins. We punch the skins and trying to avoid as much as possible pumping over and the controlling temperature and doing that. After that, this is the time we transfer the wine at the lower level, the underground floor, where the barrel cellar is located. And so the wines are having the malolactic fermentation directly in the oak barrels. And I use both in the same time small barrels, French oak small barrels, barrique, and larger cask. So a combination of the two for all the wines. The Vigna del Sorbo and Flaccianello, usually they spend 18 months in small barrels, and then the final 6 months in larger casks. For the Fontodi Chianti Classico, I spent the same time a part of the aging time in the small barrels, but not new. So used formerly for Flaccianello and Vigna del Sorbo, and the other 50% in larger casks. And the aging time for all the wines is around 2 years, 24 months.
Okay, yeah. I see we've got a new photo up on the screen, Giovanni, that you sent us earlier. This looks like a different time of year, at least. Spring has sprung in the vineyard. What's this photo showing us?
It's showing us the village, Panzano village, the castle on the top, and Pescile Vineyard, one of the one of the best, one of the most beautiful.
Yes.
That I mentioned before. It's one of the main sources for Flaccianello, and this is like a postcard. And every day there are a lot of tourists that are stopping their car and taking photo of this valley. And it's like one of the, I would say, typical view of Chianti Classico landscape, and belongs to Fontodi. So
it's postcard picture perfect, isn't it? That rolling hills, terracotta village in the background.
Yeah, quite romantic because of the flowers.
And I love this picture, Giovanni, with your bunch of sangiovese, I hope.
Yes, bunch of sangiovese 2 years ago, and in front of the village, so you can see the Conca d'Oro, the valley from the top, from the village to south. So you can see the concave shape, and in the bottom there is the cellar, the main villa where my mom lives, and the offices and everything is where the cypresses, the little forest of cypresses is located. And just behind that hill there is the Vineyard del Sorbo. That is the other vineyard that makes one of the 2 top wines that we produce. And the Vineyard del Sorbo is a very special parcel, southwest facing, And but the main characteristic of that vineyard is the age of the vines. So the vines there are older and older than 50, 55. The oldest one is my age, so planted in 1963. And so the roots are so deep, and they produce every year, you know, a great quality. Quality made of finesse and very fine characters and complexity, you know, due to the age of the vines. Sangiovese 100%, like Flaccianello, like Fontodi Chianti Classico. That is my trademark. That is what I like to do. Even if in the Chianti Classico appellation, the rules will allow the vintners to blend the Sangiovese with some other varieties, I prefer to use straight Sangiovese, so 100%, in order to have more purity, and that is what I like.
Yeah.
Last picture is the new project. That is another village called Lamole. It's tiny, very tiny village, and just below the main mountain. You can see on the top of the image there are, like say, antenna, how do you say,
the
TV,
telegraph poles.
Yeah. And that is the main mountain of Chianti Classico area. The name is Monte San Michele, 900 meters. And just below there is this beautiful vineyard, all on terraces. And the name of this vineyard is Filetta di Lamole. And I'm in love with this place. And it belongs to one of my cousins. And his family used to make wine since really centuries. One of the first winery bottling the wine in the Chianti Classico. I have a bottle to show you. This is a bottle of that wine of 1962 vintage.
So wonderful.
Yeah,
it does look a little older than my bottle.
Yeah, the same design, because I took the same label. I changed the color, but it's almost the same. And but then from the 80s to a few years ago, they stopped to bottle, and it was a pity. You know, I was saying, oh my God, I could make something special there. And so we made a deal together, and we started to work together in this place. Growing the vines together and vinifying together. And immediately at the end of fermentation, we carry the wine to Fontodi for the aging. And this is a cooler area because there is a lot of forest all around. And the elevation is much higher. The average is around 600 meters instead 450. So much cooler. And the soil is sandstone. Sandstone means very fine tannins, very fine tannins. So lower amount of clay, lower calcaire, but a lot of finesse in the tannins, more floral on the nose. So more, the beautiful little blue flowers, the little violets, a lot of violets, and it's a little bit lighter in a good sense. I like to say this is like a ballerina dancing a minuetto. This is what I say all the time. Every time I taste a glass of Filetta di Lamole. So. It's a project that started, the first bottling was 2014, and it has been very well received by the critics, by the consumers, and it's very interesting to taste side by side. The Fontodi Chianti Classico and the Filetta di Lamole Chianti Classico from the same vintage, and there are two different planets. So there is only 6 kilometers of distance between the two vineyards, and they taste very different. And so it's
wonderful to be able to place the difference in the site. And of course, I feel very privileged because last time I was in Tuscany with you, we did go and visit that very special vineyard, and standing in it, I think it was even sunset. It felt like a very special winemaking place to have that unique enclosed terroir with wild forest around. I always remember we sometimes always, especially with Sebastian, end up talking about wild boar and your constant battle with them stealing some of the grapes each year. And that vineyard especially is prone to lots of wild boar.
Yeah, we have a net all around, fences to protect the fruit. But the same is in Fontodi. Everywhere in Chianti Classico is a battle. But let me say something else about the villages of Chianti Classico. In Chianti Classico there are many villages, and everyone makes different characters. And so it's a real beauty. So Chianti Classico from Radda is very different from one made in Panzano or Castellina or Grape or Castelnuovo Ardengha. So every village has a different combination of soil, microclimate, and also wine traditions, winemaking traditions. So it's like a large family, but there is a lot of variation in and everywhere is there is the possibility to make a great wine.
Absolutely. In fact, last year at the Wine Society with the 2016 vintage, which was so fantastic, we put together a case of mixed Chianti Classico, showing 6 different producers from different areas within Chianti Classico to try and highlight that there are these very distinctive styles that come from the different villages. It's a complex winemaking region, and I think trying to get to the heart of it and understand it is, of course, something that we have to try and explain when we're selling the wines. But we should talk about these 3 wines that are currently online at the Wine Society, the 2017s. I wonder if we should just talk through them one by one and then perhaps turn to questions, if that's okay. We perhaps start with your classic, Chianti Classico Fontodi 2017.
Yeah, and the Chianti Classico is like the business card. So the main wine that I produce, 60% of the total production is represented by this wine, and believe me, the goal every year is to make this wine at its best. Even if I have to sacrifice some grapes from Vigna del Solbo or Fraccianello Vineyards, that is what I do to maintain the standard, the quality standard at that level. And as I mentioned, the main problem of 17 is the quantity, but the quality is there, so it's over the average, and nice color. There is on the nose, the fruit is just a little bit darker than usual because of the vintage was a little bit warmer. But the acidity is there. The acidity is the usual acidity of Fontodi wines. There is a good balance, and also the quality of the tannins is
I think I think it's drinking very well now, actually, with the slightly darker fruit flavor of the 17 vintage. But I think it's also still showing with that structure and acidity that this could age. You call it your business card, but it's still a wine that could sit in a cellar very happily for 5 to 10 years. Where do you feel the sweet spot for this wine might be?
I think more than 10 years, of course. And I know for sure that a lot of Wine Society members, they like to keep some of Fontodi Chianti Classico bottles in their cellar for a long time. And,
yes.
And I receive, every year an email or a letter with congratulations because of the wines was showing, surprisingly, and when opened after such a long time. So that is one of the main character of Fontodi, Fontodi Chianti Classico. It is built to age for a long time, and I'm sure that even 2017 will age for a long time.
I feel so too, tasting it now. But and it will develop, for those who perhaps haven't tasted older Chianti Classico, it should develop a slightly more spice, slightly more savory notes, a little bit maybe of leather. Those sort of flavors will come through. Perhaps fresh mushrooms as this goes into 5 or 10 years. And those tannins will slightly soften, become even more integrated. And so it can be a real pleasure. But of course, as in its youth, this is a wonderful pair with food. Which what would you pair this with at the moment, Giovanni? What should we all be cooking for dinner tomorrow?
For tomorrow, I plan to have a roasted guinea. How do you say the
Guinea fowl. Yeah.
Guinea
Like
fowl, yeah.
Yeah.
Guinea fowl, and that is a perfect combination with Fontodi Chianti Classico. But there is also a lot of versatility, you know. So you can match this wine with many different kind of food. And but let me say just a few notes on 17 vintage. I mentioned that the quantity was much smaller, and the main reason was the frost. In the springtime, in April, we had a couple of nights below zero, and that reduced, you know, the fertility of the buds. So, but that was even better, because usually when we have a little bit of frost in the springtime, the quality is exalted, you know, by that.
Mm-hmm.
And, so even if the summer was warmer than usual, but not, you know, no excess. Yeah. So just a little bit warmer and drier, but the fact that there was just a smaller quantity of fruit per vine, it was helping the vine to don't stop, you know, the ripening. So at the end, the grapes were showing fresh and absolutely no roasted berries, zero. And that is, and you know, if you taste the wine, you can see it's a fresh wine, and absolutely not overripe. And even the alcohol content is as usual, you know, is not higher than usual.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
No, and it feels very balanced. It doesn't feel as though it was an excessively hot vintage. So no, it's got lovely freshness. And then, of course, one of the fresher styles of wine you have, because of that cooler vineyard site that we saw, the Filetto de Lamoli. Could you tell us, did that vary relative to your Chianti Classico this year, your classic Fontodi? Did it have similar vintage?
Yeah, similar vintage, and but the area is much cooler. So yes. The floral notes, you know, the violets is the main flavor that you can find in this glass, and also the fruit, the cherries, that is the main fruit of Sangiovese from Chianti Classico. There are how do you say, red and not dark like in the Fontodi one. And
this perfume is astonishing. It's very different to the Chianti Classico or to the Fontodi. It's that you said the cherries really come through, but the floral notes are what seem to be coming alive at the moment. I know I'm lucky. I've had mine in my glass for a little bit of time, so it's opened up. But
the nose is very distinctive of that particular village. So if you have the opportunity to taste some other wines from Lamole macro area, all of them, they have the same distinctive. In fact, the Chianti Classico from Lamole village, even in a blind tasting, they're very, I'd say, easy to recognize and to find. Yeah.
Delicious. And would you usually have a favorite pairing for that in terms of food and wine matching? A member has wonderfully said that we should, of course, drink all of these wines with wild boar ragu to help you with your numbers. But
pappardelle pasta with ragu, wild boar ragu is a great combination.
Yes, it just so happens it's very local.
Yeah, and seasonal also.
Yes. But would you, I have been drinking it now, and I feel it would go actually very well with pork. with pork belly or with roasted pork in the UK because of that extra floral note and that lift that it has.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you.
Wonderful. And then, of course, we also have your Gran Selezione Vineyard del Sorbo on at the moment, also 2017. And perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about this wine. Very special wine.
Yeah, this is you know, one of the 2 top wines that I make. Gran Selezione is a new category of Chianti Classico appellation, recently introduced in 2014. Mm-hmm. But I make this wine since 1985. And before the introduction of Gran Selezione as a category, I used to label this wine as a Riserva. And but it's always been not a normal Riserva, but a single vineyard Riserva, so special. And so when the new category arrived, I immediately, you know, put this wine in the new category. Yeah. And it is, you know, the grapes are coming from a specific site, one of the most beautiful, and with older vines. And even in this vintage, the older vines makes the difference, you know, because when a vine is older and very old, you know, 50, more than 50, the roots are so deep. So what happens on the surface? So more or less rainfall, warmer or cooler, is not so important, you know.
Yes, so, no, they cope with the differences better.
Yeah, and the vines are not so influenced by what happens on the surface, you know. Yeah. And so the underground part of the vines is playing, you know, a very important role. So this wine, every vintage maintains his own personality and his own character, and even in this vintage, you are revealing, you know, this quite strong personality of this wine. And so there is a little bit more spiciness from respect the others, but the dark cherries are there, and how do you say, it's a larger spectrum of flavors on the nose, and the other main difference is the length is is a much longer aftertaste, so remains on your palate for longer.
This also, for me, Giovanni, feels like it's the wine that at the moment it took a little time for it to open up. It was a little closed on opening, because really we're opening this too soon. We should be leaving this for a few more years before, or at least using a big decanter and very large glassware, so that we get the full sort of variety of the possible perfume and flavors. Because it's so concentrated and complex that at the moment it's not quite showing all of that.
Shy, yeah.
Yes.
and especially on the palate, you know, the tannins are so many, and there's a big structure that requires a little bit more time in the bottle to refine. And
I'm very jealous. I've just seen that a member on the call tonight, Richard, is drinking your 2009. Yeah.
So,
and it apparently is tasting amazing. So there is a nod to that. But
thank you.
We have Catherine, who's joined us, which suggests that we may be down to 5 minutes or so. So we may need to put questions in, Giovanni. Apologies for talking too much, members. But thank you, Giovanni, for that wonderful insight into the Fontodi and everything that you're doing. Catherine.
Thank you.
Hello, yes, thank you. Just sort of lurking to shop there with some questions. So the first one that we've got is actually from Keith Hopcroft, and he was wondering about the production and the characters of the Vin Santo. So he thinks it's a rarity and does deserve a lot more recognition. So would you be able to talk to us a little bit about that, Giovanni?
Yes, Vin Santo is a very special wine that we make. The production is so small, it's so tiny, and it is a wine made with sangiovese and malvasia, so red and white grapes that we pick at the beginning of the harvest time, and after the picking we put on straw mats to have a natural drying. So in a special room with large windows, and we open the windows during the day when it's windy and dry, and we close the windows when it's raining or during the night. So there's a lot of work behind, and we keep the grapes drying for quite a long time until February, and when we take those grapes after the drying process in February and we press, they looks like resin, and so they lost a lot of the water, the juice inside because of the evaporation.
Yeah.
And we are able to take a very, very small quantity of must that we put in small barrels called caratelli, and we put there, we seal the caratelli, and we open only after 7, 8, 9 years. So the current release of Vin Santo is 2010, that has been in oak for more than 8 years. And the taste is, the color, first of all, the color is like ancient gold. And the taste is, the flavors are of dried fruits. So dried apricots, dates, dried figs, almonds, and it is sweet because it has a lot of sugar residual. The alcohol is around 12.5, and the acidity is higher than usual, but it's necessary to have a good balance with the sugar. It's all natural, so there is no addition of anything. So there is no addition of alcohol, sugar, or sulfites, zero. It's completely natural, and that is the wine that belongs to our deepest tradition. So in Chianti, every family, even families that they don't own any vineyards, they make some Vin Santo. Even a small barrel like this, just few liters, but they make, because that is the wine of friendship. So the wine that everyone pour a little glass of Vin Santino, so a small glass of Vin Santo when people are coming to your house, and instead to give them a coffee or a cup of tea, they give a little glass of Vin Santo. So it's it's something that is very connected with our culture, with our tradition, and it's great also with food. And there are a lot of great dessert or cheeses, blue cheeses that match perfectly with Vin Santo. But the best is the crostino with the chicken liver pate and the splash of Vin Santo in the pate. That is what my mom does all the time. That is, for me, the best combination with Vin Santo.
Yeah. Oh, it's wonderful wine.
It's delicious.
We need lots of fans of sweet wine in the UK to embrace Vin Santo.
Perfect.
So it's not just a dessert wine made with dried grapes. There is something more behind. And,
yes, it's cultural importance in Tuscany. It's Yeah.
So the next question is, I'm going to sort of merge together some questions that we've had from a few members, because we've had a lot of interest about some international varieties. And one of the points that has been made first is that the Fontodi, the Casa Via Syrah, is quite an unusual grape to have in Tuscany, and it's wanting to have a bit of the background around choosing that grape. And then on the other hand, with international varieties, you talked about how the Vigna del Sorbo is now 100% Sangiovese. So the Cabernet Sauvignon that you used to have for that, why did you then decide to stop using it, and what has happened to those vines?
Wow, it's a good question. So the first one, Syrah, we have to go back to 80s. So at that time I was traveling as much as possible in the most known, most famous wine regions, and I fell in love with Northern Rhone. And I remember when I walked up on Tel Hermitage, up on the hill, La Chapelle Hill, and it's an amazing place. I suggest to everybody to go there if you haven't been there yet, because it's one of the most beautiful places in the world if you are a wine lover. And so I fell in love with Syrah-based wines, and I remember the 78. At that time, there was released the 78 vintage. That was really amazing, one of the best of the history, and I found some similarities in the environment. So some natural vegetation species, or the climate, very windy, and so after that trip, I decided to experiment. I was also in my 20s. When you are 20 years old, you want to try everything. You want to experiment life, and that is one of the reason why I planted some vines of Syrah, and as an experiment. The experiment was quite encouraging, so I continue to produce, and I'm still very jealous of this wine, and I think it's I continue to make it because people loves it, and even if it's a very small production, now it's around 4,000 or 5,000 bottles every year, but now the vines are older and older, so every year we can see a little bit of increase in quality, and that is why I'm still making it. Regarding the second question, when I started to make Vineyard del Sorbo in 1985, in that parcel, I used to have some rows of Cabernet Sauvignon, because a few years before, 79, 80, I regrafted some white varieties, some Trebbiano and some Canaiolo with Cabernet Sauvignon, and just to try, just an experiment. So when I was, when I started to make the Vineyard del Sorbo, I vinified the two varieties separately, and making the blend just before bottling. And the wine was successful, so was very well received by my customers, and I did that until 2011. But every year, before blending, I was saying, "Oh my God! But the Sangiovese is so good even without Cabernet." So first, I reduced the amount of Cabernet from 10% to 5%. And then finally, in 2012, I decided to don't use anymore the Cabernet Sauvignon. And I pulled the vines. So in order to don't have any, temptation to go back, I pulled the vines, and so there is no more Cabernet in Fontodi. So even if my children would like to do something different, it's not possible.
No.
So the future of Fontodi for the Chianti Classico wines is Sangiovese 100%. The present and the future.
Excellent. And looking to the future, Sarah, obviously we've had a lot of members that have been wanting to know whether we will have Flaccinello back available for them to buy. Is there any little snippets that you can let us know on that?
So I can answer that. We buy every vintage of Flaccinello, and as much as we possibly can each year. We adore the wine and love following it. But we also really love selling members' wine when it's really starting to sing. And I think Flaccinello is the wine of the set from Fontodi that I feel really benefits a little bit of aging. And we're in such a unique position at the Wine Society to be able to hold wine for members and not alter our selling price when we do release it. So we can hold these wines and let you have them in a few years' time when they're really starting to sing. So I hope it's a really beneficial thing. And actually, I have a sneak peek in that we'll be releasing a small parcel of 2010 in the spring next year. So it's for the ability to do that. It's such a pleasure tasting a fully, a Fractionello that's really hitting its stride and running at its full potential, that I'll probably hold on to the wines a little bit longer. So we have got the 2017. We, of course, bought all the vintages between 2010 and 2017, and I have a little bit of stock of a few of them. So I will be releasing them as they start to sing. But I also hope to do an offer either next autumn, possibly the autumn after, where we will feature a number of wines that we've kept in stock, including some magnums from Giovanni. So we will do a whole Fontodi feature when we can tell this story to the wider membership and allow what can be quite small allocations for the number of members we have to stretch a little bit further. So it's really just about our cooperative ability to keep stock for members and to then try and share it as fairly as we can. So yes.
Wonderful.
Good things come to those who wait, I think, is the
definitely
takeaway from that. And I think finally, just to finish on a couple of slightly perhaps easier, softer questions for you, Giovanni. I was mentioning what your children may want to do with the vines and the winemaking in the future. Is it still quite a family involved affair? And when we're able to travel again, will we be able to come and visit you?
Yeah, so regarding my children, I have 3 children, and Margherita, my daughter, she's 28. They recently joined me after the university, and she's helping me and assisting me regarding marketing and communication and all those things. My son Bernardo, that is in the middle, is 25, and he's very passionate about winemaking, and so officially started last harvest, so 2020, and is now taking more and more responsibility in the cellar, in the winemaking. And I have also one of my nephew, Corso, son of my brother Marco, that is the same age and the same position in Fontodi. So, three members of the next generation are already, joined me, and I'm very happy about that. Very, very happy, and it's a pleasure, it's a joy to work with them, because they have new ideas and new, I look, watching them, I look, it's reminding me, my dreams, all my dreams when I was at the same age, so it's a real joy. Sometimes we discuss, we fight, as always, and they experiment a lot of things, and they are very interested in local varieties, also disappeared varieties. They insisted with me a few years ago to try again with Trebbiano, that is a local white variety, and because of them, I introduced in the blend with sangiovese, with Sauvignon Blanc to make Meriggio. So they are giving me, new energy and even good ideas. So it's, I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
And will we be able to visit you when we're able to travel? Can we come and visit the vineyards? Or
If you
My
do,
you open to visitors?
No, London. My first trip.
First trip.
After when we start again to travel, will be London. I miss London. And,
And if our members come to Tuscany, Giovanni, do you have a visitor center they can make an appointment at?
Yes, of course. Sorry,
I don't know.
I didn't understand the question. Sorry.
No. I'm glad you're coming to London next.
Yes. But we are here to welcome all the members, and we are very happy when all the members are coming to Fontodi, and we'll arrange special tasting, a special tour of the vineyards with the Land Rover or the cellar. So it will be a pleasure to see
Wonderful.
the Wine Society members in Fontodi back. And
we always recommend, I think on our own website, we recommend having visited you to eat dinner with the butcher in Panzano.
Yeah, with my friend Dario the butcher, and having a steak from one of the Fontodi cows.
Yeah, a wonderful experience. I can't wait until we can all travel again. It really is something that I have missed deeply this last 9 months.
I invite all the Wine Society members to come, not in the same day, but
that's very kind.
It will be a great joy to see them and to spend with them some of my time.
Well, it's been a great joy to see you this evening, Giovanni. Thank you so much for joining us all. And I was delighted to see so many members logging on and so many positive comments in the chat. I believe we may have had a few extra questions, which I hope, Giovanni, you won't mind if I send your way after this to see if we can get a few more answers. But we'll try and get back to as many of you as we can. Catherine, Anna, Emma, Hannah in the background, thank you all so much for keeping us moving and for keeping it all together. But Giovanni, a huge thank you from me and a huge sort of hello from everybody at the Wine Society that you know so well. We're so pleased to have these wines and to have them on offer for members before Christmas and to have some in the cellar for the times to come.
But Sarah, thank you very much for having me and for having arranged such a beautiful event. And thank you, Catherine. Thank you all the tasting team, and thank you to all the members that joined us. It was a great pleasure, and I hope to see you in person next time. And a Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. We will get those emails out to everyone with some extra answers. So they will be coming to you very shortly when we're able. But thank you all.
See you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.